Everybody, welcome to live stream number 24. Today is Tuesday. It is the 11th of July, so just way into summer here. If you're watching this, you are watching the recording of this live stream because just fired up. I haven't got anybody in there yet, but we will just in a second, I'm sure. I hope. Thank you so much for joining me today. Today's topic is I put in the description area beginner. Because I just felt like I need to create this video, this live stream, and that's talking about how to file save, how to upload files, how to download files inside of Fusion, how to kind of like work with that if you are brand new to Fusion, because it can be a little confusing in the beginning, especially if you're kind of like working with what I like to call like 1990 CAD system, or like how we have done programming for years, where we all save anything local. Of course, with Fusion 360, you're in the cloud. So we're going to talk about that today. So thank you so much for joining. In the description area, you will find my email address, lars.christensen@autodesk.com. More than welcome to send me any specific topics you would like to see here on the live stream. So yesterday we did the first Ask Lars kind of session where I answered a couple of questions that was sent to me by email, and I got some good feedback for that. So that was awesome. I appreciate that. And I definitely think we're gonna do something like that again, because that was great. Tomorrow, the topic is, I've written it down, talk about layout sketches. I just uploaded a huge tutorial about how to do a plastic injection mold inside of Fusion 360. Hopefully you saw that if you subscribe to the channel. And I want to talk a little bit about that procedure of using layout sketches for that kind of stuff. And then also, it is tomorrow the second edition of Flashy Wednesday. I don't know if we got a better name for that coming up, but we're gonna highlight somebody or some product or person that I follow, or I kind of like feel like that if you don't follow, you should. So or should be aware of. So that's tomorrow. Today is all about files and how to kind of like just understanding how that is all working. I'm just gonna check in the chat here. I can see that we got 25 people already within 2 minutes. You guys are awesome. Carl's back. Appreciate it. Hey, my buddy Bryce. You all know Bryce that does all the What's New inside of Fusion. Joined today. That's awesome. Good to see you, buddy. We got people from all over. We got people from Holland. Hello, Max. It's awesome. Appreciate it, guys. Let's jump into Fusion and talk a little bit about the whole file, save, open, and how it all works. And like I said, this is pretty beginner. So if you feel comfortable inside of Fusion 360, then this probably all makes sense. But I think it's important to, if you are new, this is definitely something that can be a little confusing. And let's straighten it up. So jump off here. See if I can find my mouse here. There we go. And, that is Fusion 360. You know that. So inside of Fusion 360, when you open up Fusion, you always have a new file up here untitled, it's called. And there's a couple of different ways you can work with Fusion. So if I go up here to the drop down, you could create a new design, but kind of like this will do what we already have kind of like open. It will create another open file here. But if you go down and say new design from file, that is pretty tempting, right? We can click here and a dialog will open up that will let us bring in some file types. You'll see here I have actually a step file. And if you're looking down here on the drop down, you will see that you got a few different formats you can bring in here. So a F3D is the Fusion document type, but you will see also in here we have some edges, we have some steps. And by the way, we talked about edges and steps a few live streams ago about like my favorite kind of file formats to bring into Fusion. But if you have used other CAD systems, you see that this list is fairly short compared to what you have seen before. And there's a reason for that. And the reason for that is that Fusion operates in the cloud. And that actually means that all the translators for other kind of formats are in the cloud. What does that mean? Well, it means that when you install Fusion 360, when you're working with a file, it saves it two places. It saves it in the cloud, pointing up. I don't know where the cloud is, up somewhere, some server, it saves it up there, but it simultaneously is also saving it locally on your file, or on your computer. So it's saved two places at once. What means that if you don't have an internet connection, then you can still work because they are saved both places. That's pretty awesome, right? So like you go to the airport, you go out to a customer, whatever, then you can see both. You can see the content because it's saved both places. Now, when it's saved locally, automatically by Fusion, it does this automatically. It's not saved with like the F3D extension per se. It's saved inside of the program just because that makes a little bit more sense from a programming standpoint. Now, you can actually control how much you are storing on your local computer. So if you ever worked with CAD before, you know the CAD files have a tendency to kind of like grow and become bigger. At some point, you're going to run out of hard drive space. Well, what you can do inside of Fusion is you can actually control how much you are storing on your local computer. And you can do that by going up to you, click on your name, and hit your preferences. And in here, you will see that there is a offline cache time period. So mine is set to 60 days. Depends on how much, how much space you have. Like if you have a ton of storage space on your computer, changing it to 3 months, that's fine. Whatever kind of like works for you. But what that means is that now on my computer, if I have set it to 90 days, 3 months, is that it will kind of like cache out anything that is older than that. Of course, that does not mean that you cannot save files out of Fusion and bring them locally as a file extension. So let's talk a little bit about that. I hope that this makes sense to this point. So let me just recap. So when you're opening up Fusion and you are working with your file, and you hit the save icon, it saves it up to the cloud, to your account, up in the cloud, and locally to your computer at the same time, like internally in the computer. So if you ever go offline, you will see all the content in there, depending on how much cache you have saved in the setting I just showed you. So 60 days or 90 days, whatever you set that at. So let's go back into Fusion, and let's go back in and say File, Open, Design from File, New Design from File. Let's go back into this file here. This is on my desktop. So this file is saved out. It's a step file, but it's a neutral type of format. Now, if I click on that one and I open it up, you will see that it opens up right inside of Fusion. And this is, by the way, a stir paddle for a AeroPress for this mold. You're going to see a lot more of these different files. I'm going to be using those a ton in upcoming live streams. And actually, the mold is what we're going to talk about tomorrow. But I just opened this file up. You will see up here there's a little star next to the name. And that means that this one has not been saved yet. It's just open in Fusion right now, but it hasn't been saved to the cloud or locally inside of Fusion. I just literally opened it up from my desktop on my computer. That brings us to talk about the whole scenario of working on the cloud at the same time. If you go up and click up on these 9 squares that is up here, that will show you your data panel. And what we're looking at here is kind of like this excess space for all your different files. And here you can create new projects. What is each of these columns in here? I have a project down here called live stream. If I open that up by clicking, you will see that I already have some different files in here. Now if I go up and I hit save to this file, this is a step file we open up from the desktop. If I hit save, I get prompted. I can give it a name, so I'm going to call this one, pedal. And then I can choose where I want to save it. Now you will see that it's saving it right into that live stream location. That is this location right here. But of course, if you hit the drop down, you will see that you could save it out to other projects that is already created. You can also create new projects from right here, or you can even create new folders inside of a project. Like you can see, I have a folder in here. But I'm just going to hit save right here. Click save. And you will now see that that pedal, that file is saving right in here in my live stream folder. What that means by I just saved it in here, it means that right now Fusion 360 is saving this locally inside of the software. So if I go offline, this will be available, but it's also saving it up to the cloud portion of Fusion 360. So with that, what does that mean? What does that really give us in an aspect of working with the cloud? Well, the cloud gives us some really cool ways to do different things. The first of them is one of the things that I use a lot, and that is if you ever want to share a file with somebody else, who's sitting on another computer, another place, another location. If you right-click on the file over here in the data panel, so right-click, you will see that you get some different options in here. And because we are using this cloud options, one of my favorite things is that we can share what is called a public link. Let me click on that. And when I do that, I get this little window here. And of course, I know you can read all these different things. But if I hit this little checkbox, I will actually get a URL that I can copy to my clipboard. And this is awesome if you got to send somebody a file. Now, and notice down here that you can control some privacy settings. So you can actually let people download that file. And that's what I normally have. You can also put a password on it, what can be kind of nice, of course. So what this means is that if I click copy, and then I, for example, go in and say that I'm going to send somebody an email in here, then I can just go in, and now I saw that Bryce was on here. So, I can type in an email, and I can send to him, here's the file, and I can Control V or paste that URL to Bryce, for example, and that's how I can share that file with somebody else, and that just makes life so much easier instead of if you work with some other systems, Pack and Go and things like that. So let me just X out of this. So the way I got to that was I literally just right-clicked on the file over here in my project. I can right-click, and now I do the share public link, and that means that now I can share him or somebody this link here. So let's take a look at what does this link gives us. Well, if we open up another browser, a good old trusted Google, and I paste in that link and hit enter, what would that person get? Well, and I didn't have the password shown here, but what I get is first of all, I get a web viewer, what in itself is pretty cool. You don't have to install any software to be able to look at this. So now you can send a file to your customer and they can take a look at the file. There's a bunch of tools in here that you can check out yourself. You can do all different kinds of markups. You can draw arrows and do all kinds of fancy things in here. You can do section views in here. So you can exit. Now this is probably not very exciting because it's just a part. But if it's an assembly or something like that, you can do section views. All these things right in a browser for people to view. They can also do measurements and things like that. Then they can decide to download the file. Now, when they download the file, you will see that something changed here from before, because we're using the cloud via here, you actually now get all kinds of different file formats you can download as. So not just as an IGES or a STEP, but you actually also get, STL, you get SketchUp, you get OBJ, Inventor, and things like that, and the Fusion file format up here too. So if I click on that, you will see you get prompted to type in your email address, and you will see here is my email address, and I can then send, and I will get a link. So this would be the customer putting in the link, and now Fusion 360 will send that person that format I've selected as an email downloadable link. So that's kind of cool. So that's how you can share files inside from Fusion. So literally right click and say, share public link, and then when, in my case, Bryce open up that email, that is what he would see, and then he could, when he clicked the link, and then he could download it to his workstation from in here. Now, another thing that is probably worth showing also is that if you click up on the name up on top of the project, then it will open up out to Fusion Online. So what you see right here when I open this up is kind of like I would call it extended view of what you see inside of the data panel here inside of Fusion 360. And getting a little bit familiar with the online view here, I don't think is a bad idea. So what you will see is you will see the things that you saw inside of the data panel. It's actually telling you right now that I have that file open. So you can invite other people to these different projects. So you can have a whole team looking at this, and they will be able to see what is available in here. Now, you will also see that as I'm hovering over here, you get some different icons, and you're probably familiar with some of them. So, like if I click on this one here, that will bring me to that same thing we saw when I right-click and I said share public link. I could also download it from right here. Again, like before, we could actually, download right from this format, and you will also see that we could actually go in and do some other options like copying, editing in a browser, something that is coming. We're going to talk about that a little bit in another live stream, but you'll see you get some different options in here. And one of the things that is neat about this web viewer is you can actually also bring other things in. So if I, for example, go up here and say upload, you can see here that you can actually upload files, folders, assemblies. So if I go in here, you can upload other stuff than just CAD files inside of these projects. So here's the banner for our today's live stream. So I can actually upload that PNG. I can upload that into here. So you can have like PDFs and other things inside of these projects for you to save. So this gives you an option inside of these projects to actually store other things. So this could be, the customer sends you a PDF file or something like that, the drawing of the file. You can actually save that right inside of this project folder. So it gives you an option to save other things than just that. And since you can invite people, you can of course also communicate with them in here. So if I go in and look at this paddle we've been looking at, you will see over here that I could actually, if I had other people in here, I could actually chat with them in here. I could leave a comment saying, this is going to be coming a mold and so forth. I could go ahead and I can view the file in here. You will see we have the same share. You'll also see in here we have the different files that we can work with. So I really hope that this kind of gives you an idea, if you're brand new to Fusion, how this whole thing works with being able to save using the cloud and also looking at it at a local way. So it goes both ways. So I had a question from one guy who was asking, how do I save my file out and then save it on a thumb drive, and then when I go to my home computer, I can actually open up in Fusion there and work with it. Now, first of all, to do that, you would follow you could follow the steps we just did in here. So you could, inside of Fusion, when you're done working with it. By the way, we get notified I get notified in here that there was an update to the folder out on the web. If I hit the refresh button, you will actually see that picture just appeared. And of course, this works both ways. I can right click on it here and I can get rid of it too, and it will get rid of it permanently here and up on the stream. But if you wanted to save a file out from in here, you just right click and you can say share a public link. That's one way you would share it. If you just wanted to save this file out as a Fusion 360 file, just go up and click on the project. So you get out here to your Fusion web area, and here you can go over and you can click and you can say you want to download the file out there, and then you can bring it locally to your machine. Now, just not to become too long-winded here. So what if I, for example, got an STL file from a customer? They emailed me an STL file, and I wanted to bring that into Fusion 360. Well, or a SolidWorks file or another format. You will see that if I go up here and I say new design from file, that I only got a few handful of file formats. Well, the great thing part of the great thing about using the cloud is that all the translators to translate from other formats is sitting up on the cloud. So we can actually, Autodesk can actually keep all of those on the latest and greatest version, what is absolutely phenomenal. When you're translating in other file format, it is a little bit like translating, from German to, Spanish or something like that. There's a translation process. So this gives us an opportunity to make sure you have the latest and greatest translators up on the cloud. The way you will translate something in is in here in the data panel, you actually have a upload button right here. And if I click on that upload button, I can then go out and select whatever files I want, and you will see that here now I have this huge, I call it the Cheesecake Factory menu of different formats you can bring in. So, of course, the Fusion files, but also CATIA and Pro-E and SolidWorks and all these different formats that you can now go out and bring in here. And I did put a STL file in here. So if I click on that, I select that STL file, I can hit upload, and now that will go through and be translated in here and give me this STL file to work with. So this is how you would work with if you got bring, somebody sent you a SolidWorks file or an Inventor file or something like that, to bring that into Fusion 360, you will just go to the upload file right here and you can bring it in. If you want to save something out of Fusion 360, just go to the live stream or to the name up here and then save it out that way. But really, I think one of my favorite things about using this system is the opportunity to right click and say share public link, and then you can just give people a link that will let them get into a viewer where they can look at it. So even if they don't have Fusion 360, this could be my mom, for crying out loud, and she'll be able to view the file, rotate it, make markups, and save it to her computer. So I hope that this was helpful if you were new. This is definitely one of the powers of working with a cloud version. Another thing that you also should be aware of is that all the stuff you see inside the data panel in there. It's all associated to your login. So when you install Fusion 360, you get a specific login, and that's where all the files is. So if you go over to somebody else's computer, you can actually go to, let's say you go to your customer and they also have Fusion installed. If you log in with your credentials, with your Fusion 360 login, then your data panel will be showing up inside the screen, and then it's like you were at your own computer. So that can be a great way too. You go out to a customer to visit them. If they already also have Fusion 360, you can just go ahead and you can log in, and now you can literally work on your data right there with them. So you don't have this disconnect as we normally have. With standard CAD or like old Word and Excel, it was always like, save your file locally, and then you had to do something with it there, get it on a thumb drive, or try to hopefully, if you had to email it, it was not too big. Now it's all available for you on the cloud. Hope this was helpful for today's live stream. Just going to check the chat quickly. We'll see we've got 39 people in here, which is absolutely awesome. I appreciate it, guys. See that we got a bunch of comments in here. All right. Just going to check quickly. All right, so one question I have here is the difference between Inventor and Fusion. So I don't want to run it too long, and that could definitely, we can dig deeper into this later on. So Inventor is, do you hear my guy across the streets motorcycle driving? If you hear that, that's him over there getting his Harley going. So the difference is that Inventor is a standalone CAD program that was created, I don't know, late 90s, early 2000s after Mechanical Desktop. So Inventor have been around for, we're getting up like 17 years or something like that. Fusion 360 is kind of the new kid on the block, kind of like trying to do things a little bit different with Fusion. So it has some of the same tools as Inventor has, like the CAD portion, but then it also have the name Fusion means fuse different things together. So there's the simulation aspect, there's the CAM aspect, and there's the mesh workspace, and so it's kind of like taking different things and kind of like fusing it together, and then utilizing some of the things that I showed you today, having these cloud versions. So Fusion 360 is kind of like the next generation from Autodesk. Inventor is not going to go. It's not going to go away. We got thousands and thousands of users of Inventor, and Inventor has definitely strong holds out there. A couple of things, because again you're working with CAD system that was developed back in the 2000s. That was freaking the flip phone area, right? It means that you have to have some really heavy-duty workstations to be able to handle it. No chance for any Mac users to use it. And you were really required to have some really high-end graphics cards to do it and things like that. That's where Fusion lets you, do different things. Got the mobile devices. You can actually view your Fusion files right on here and different things. So that's the major thing between Inventor and Fusion. It's kind of like the new thing, but I still think that Inventor is going to be used by many companies for, decades to go, just because it's great at what it's doing. So I hope that makes sense. All right, I'm going to end the broadcast here as usual, and then I'm going to just jump in the chat and say hi to you guys in there. So be aware of, this was live stream number 24. Yep. It's July 11th. Tomorrow's live stream is at 1 o'clock, so 1 hour later, 1 o'clock Eastern. That's where I am in that time zone. So it's 1 hour later. We're going to talk about layout sketches a little bit. I think that's something that you definitely could find helpful. And then there's also, what do we call it, Flashy Wednesday. I have somebody that, I want you to get familiar with if you're not already familiar with them. So I hope that you will tune in for tomorrow's live stream. And don't forget, down in the description area is my email address. Send me an email for anything you would like to see. End the broadcast, and I'll see the people who is live in the chat here. Thank you so much.